Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back with another program on the Water Infrastructure Group. Tonight we have Kirk Allen with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works. He's a senior civil engineer and manager for the Safe Clean Water Program, Measure W. And he's been working with Public Works for 22 years. He worked on the water works districts for 14 years and has now been tasked with implementing this program that aims to improve water quality, increase drought preparedness, and promote public health in the Los Angeles region. So please welcome Kirk tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you so much, Kathy. So nice to meet everyone. Again, good evening. I am Kirk Allen, Senior Civil Engineer at LA County Public Works. And I'm privileged to provide an update on the Safe Clean Water Program to the League of Women Voters, Water and Infrastructure Group. The importance of stormwater cannot be overstated, and it is critical that we ensure safe and clean water resources for our communities. So back in 2018, the LA County Board of Supervisors created the Safe Clean Water Program through Measure W, which aims to address regional stormwater issues by capturing, cleaning, and conserving more local water resources. The program has three main objectives and prioritizes nature-based solutions and benefits for disadvantaged communities. The LA County Flood Control District is responsible for implementing the program and funding its operations and maintenance. After 3 years, the program has successfully shifted the region towards more collaborative approaches to multi-benefit projects that improve water quality. And just one point here in talking with Kathy, I wanted to mention this concept of first flush. I just want to spotlight this one aspect in stormwater management, which is the term first flush. And that refers to the initial runoff from a rainfall event that can carry higher concentrations of pollutants than subsequent runoffs. When it rains, the water that falls on impervious surfaces like roofs, parking lots, and roads can pick up these pollutants such as oil, grease, sediment, debris, and other chemicals. And during that first flush, these pollutants get flushed out from these surfaces and enter into our stormwater systems. That initial runoff tends to be more contaminated, and because it washes away pollutants that have accumulated on the surface since the previous rainfall event. As the storm continues, the runoff gradually becomes less contaminated. To manage the impact of first flush on water quality, stormwater management practices are designed to capture and treat that initial runoff before it enters water bodies. And this can be done by a number of techniques such as detention basins, swales, vegetated buffers, and other stormwater treatment measures. By capturing and treating that first flush, these practices can help reduce the amount of pollutants entering the waterways during storm events. So in regards to the tax, the Safe Clean Water Program Special Parcel Tax in LA County collects revenue from three main sub-programs referred to as buckets, each of which serve a specific purpose in funding the program's initiatives. The first bucket represents 50% of the revenue and is allocated to what's called the regional program. This money is used to fund regional stormwater management projects that benefit multiple communities within the county. The project includes things like improving water quality in rivers and streams, building stormwater capture and treatment facilities, and supporting green infrastructure projects. The second bucket represents 40% of the revenue, and it is allocated to the municipalities or cities, if you will, within the county. The funds are just distributed to each city and unincorporated area in a portion to the amount of impervious surface area in that jurisdiction. This money is used to fund local stormwater management projects such as street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, and repairing or retrofitting existing stormwater infrastructure. And the third bucket represents 10% of the revenue and is used to administer the program and fund projects directly managed by the Flood Control District. These funds are used to build and maintain district facilities and infrastructure, as well as to develop and implement educational and outreach programs to promote public awareness and participation in stormwater management. Overall, the program's revenue is distributed in a way that ensures both regional and local stormwater management needs are addressed, while also investing in educational and outreach efforts to engage and inform the public about the importance of managing stormwater in a safe and sustainable way. And in a nutshell, the Safe Clean Water Tax is 2.5 cents per square foot of impermeable area. And that collective total on an annual basis is around $280 million that is generated through the special parcel tax. So the Safe Clean Water Program has established, within the regional program, has established a regional governance set of committees that are responsible for guiding the implementation of the program objectives within their respective regions. These committees consist of representatives from various stakeholder groups, including community organizations, environmental groups, and local government agencies. The stormwater investment plans developing those is a process that is a critical component of the Safe Clean Water Program, which identifies and prioritizes multi-benefit stormwater projects based on community needs and environmental benefits. And these stormwater investment plan processes involve extensive stakeholder engagement, technical analysis, and public outreach to ensure that the identified projects meet the program goals and objectives. Once the projects are identified and prioritized, they are then eligible for funding through the Safe Clean Water Program to support their implementation and ongoing maintenance. And each year, these stormwater investment plans are approved by the County Board of Supervisors in the fall. The SIP process is an annual cycle consisting of 3 main phases. There is a call for projects phase. That first phase involves soliciting project proposals from stakeholders and agencies and community members across the region. These stormwater investment plans, during the second phase, the stormwater investment plans are programmed in that phase. In that phase, the submitted project proposals are evaluated based on various criteria, including their potential environmental and social benefits. The most promising projects are then programmed into the stormwater investment plan for the upcoming year. The next phase is adoption of budgets for the recommended projects. This final phase involves adoption of budgets for the recommended projects, which are then funded through the Safe Clean Water Program. Year 3 of the program was approved on October 4th, which marked the successful completion of the 3rd annual cycle last year. So, I think I skipped ahead. Okay, here we go. So within the Safe Clean Water Program, adaptive management is used to ensure that the program is achieving its objectives and meeting the needs of stakeholders in the community. The program employs several strategies to support adaptive management, including 12 full-time watershed coordinators. These coordinators work closely with stakeholders and communities to ensure that program objectives are met and to identify areas for improvement. In 2022, we issued interim guidance. The program provides interim guidance documents that outline best practices and standards for implementation. These documents are updated as needed to reflect new information or changing conditions. And we have a metrics and monitoring study underway. And this study conducts regular monitoring and evaluation to assess the effectiveness of implemented projects and to identify areas for improvement. A third item of adaptive management is a biennial hearing process. The program conducts a biennial hearing to gather feedback from stakeholders and the public on the program's progress and identify areas for improvement. Ongoing development of tools and resources. The program continuously develops new tools and resources to support implementation and monitoring efforts. And there's also credits, exemptions, and appeals associated with the special parcel tax. The program provides credits and exemptions for projects that meet certain criteria and allows for appeals to ensure fairness and transparency in the program's implementation. Overall, the adaptive management approach used within the Safe Clean Water Program allows for continuous improvement and ensures that the program is responsive to the needs of stakeholders and communities. So this plot here shows the total amount of infrastructure investments approved by the Board of Supervisors for the Safe Clean Water program within the regional program, the 50% bucket. The program is unique because recipients receive funding in advance rather than as a reimbursement like most grant programs. Several cities and counties have leveraged their local return towards various projects, including feasibility studies and stormwater capture projects. So in total, you can see, over 100 projects are now being funded through the program. Through fiscal year 26-27, approximately $670 million will be invested in those projects from the regional program. And if you look at the leveraged fund that's coming from general funds and other potential state and federal funding, will be close to $540 million through fiscal year 26-27. So on the latest board approval for stormwater investment plans in the fall of 2022 marks a significant milestone for the Safe Clean Water program. Over 100 infrastructure projects have been funded, representing more than 1.2 billion in investments. Just let that sink in, 1.2 billion. Additionally, the program has funded 17 scientific studies and 6 new technical assistant concepts that will be developed into feasibility studies. While about 20 projects have been completed, many others are still in progress and expected to be completed in the next few years. So in the Safe Clean Water program's municipal program, the 40% bucket offers flexibility for cities to pursue their stormwater and urban runoff practices within their jurisdictions and within their city programs. These projects must have a water quality benefit, and the needs vary from monitoring to street sweeping and O&M of their systems, among others. Municipal funds are also used to develop feasibility studies for regional projects. And one thing that's required of each city is annual plans. They detail the planned expenditure for that local return and are available on the program's website. So all of the proposed stormwater investments are shown in detail on the Safe Clean Water program's webpage on an easy to use platform. You can see the yellow arrow there points to, this is our picture of our home screen, and that yellow arrow points to the project portal. And that's a really neat feature that has a lot of wow factor to it. You can see all the projects in the various watersheds. You can sort by types of projects and funding years, and look at different types of benefits, that are listed on the Safe Clean Water portal. So this is another picture with a few clips from the Safe Clean Water portal. At the portal, users can search and filter the map for project names and types, locations by watershed area, stormwater investment plan funding year, and more. Selecting projects allows additional at-a-glance detail in the side pop-out features. This mapping feature allows for additional layers to help identify jurisdictions, groundwater basins, rivers, and aerial imagery, to name a few. So all of these proposed regional program investments are shown collectively in the portal's dashboard, which entails program overview, benefit summaries, and project list details. Various ways exist to sort and filter down to smaller areas to gain perspectives. The dashboard showcases project info in a tabular form. Additional enhancements to this feature are underway with the application developer to make this more self-serving for those that utilize. So these next few slides are some projects I just want to highlight to show, some of this money, some of this investment that's underway. One key project for the county is Franklin D. Roosevelt Park Regional Stormwater Capture Project. This was funded through the regional program's infrastructure program for about $4 million. This project diverts stormwater and urban runoff into 2 infiltration galleries. That's the big excavation you see there with the concrete pedestals. And it includes 2 infiltration galleries and 3 infiltration dry wells, which include multiple above ground park improvements. Pollutants being addressed include zinc, bacteria, trash from a 200-acre watershed area. This project is completed and is capturing stormwater and dry weather runoff year-round. This next project here is our East Los Angeles Medians project. This is funded through the regional program as well for approximately $7 million. This diverts stormwater and urban runoff into 103 infiltration wells. These wells are 6 feet in diameter and drilled 100 feet below the surface. There's a lot of vegetation that has been added to this median, over 300 new trees and various above ground improvements. Pollutants being addressed include zinc, bacteria, trash from a 300-acre watershed area. This project too is completed and capturing stormwater and dry weather runoff year-round. And this project here is in the city of San Fernando. This is called the Regional Park Infiltration Project. It began construction in the spring of 2022 and is still under construction. A project tour by the watershed coordinator was facilitated in the fall of 2022. This project is receiving over $9 million from the Safe Clean Water program, and it diverts stormwater and urban runoff into infiltration galleries that aim to add close to 400 acre feet into the groundwater basin annually in the San Fernando Basin. This project also includes above ground park improvements, replacing surface of the ball field and trails plus tree plantings. Pollutants being addressed include zinc from a 942 acre watershed area with a 24 acre foot capacity per storm event. So this project here is our Adventure Park Stormwater Capture Project. This is not a groundwater augmentation project, but it is a sewer diversion. There's a lot of different fates for water that is diverted into these stormwater BMPs. And this one just recently had its groundbreaking ceremony. It's getting under construction, but this diverts water off of some of the storm drains in this area of Whittier and diverts it into a holding tank, a cistern, if you will. And then from that cistern, it is pumped into the sewer shed. It goes to the wastewater treatment plant to help augment recycled water in that area. This project leveraged external funding from Caltrans through a partnership and continues with community outreach and engagement. A lot of different elements are planned for the community, such as park enhancement and habitat, enhanced recreational opportunities, potentially reducing heat island effect, and increasing vegetation. This project is potentially going to add close to 193 acre feet of water in regards to recycled water supply for those communities that use recycled water. And in regards to communication, education, and engagement, we are in active conversations, much like tonight, with many stakeholders about these programs, including exploring a potential grants program, support for municipalities, including a handbook, and researching existing opportunities to invest in workforce development, while also coordinating with other county departments. The Flood Control District is in the process of updating the website to make it more user-friendly, and are developing a strategic communication plan to dovetail with education and outreach efforts being conducted by our watershed coordinators and other efforts under development through the district ed sustained education and engagement programs. A brief summary of Safe Clean Water outreach elements. We're including interactive and user-friendly webpage, including watershed area specific web pages, stakeholder email blast, both to master lists and watershed specific lists. And if anyone on the call here is interested in subscribing, I can send an email to Kathy that could potentially be redistributed to the group here to sign up to receive our e-blast. We have routine public watershed area steering committee meetings. I just was at one earlier this afternoon. And we have regular meetings with representative stakeholders in sectors such as environmental nonprofit groups, municipalities, and construction industry. We also frequent booth presence at public and community events and professional organizations, conferences, and webinars. And we have as-needed meetings with participants, partners, and other stakeholders. Our watershed coordinators hold events and other communication engagement consistent with their respective strategic outreach and engagement plans. And watershed coordinators have been given project tours for projects that are being under construction and in the process of being put into operation. And moving on to my last slide here. So in conclusion, the execution of proposed projects will aid in the capture and purification of urban and stormwater runoff, mitigating the hazards of contaminated runoff to communities and safeguarding public health. Furthermore, the Safe Clean Water Program enhances the county's ability to adequately prepare for environmental and natural emergencies and tackle the challenges of climate change. As the Safe Clean Water Program is a long-term initiative, the LA County Flood Control District is dedicated to maximizing community participation. Contact information is displayed on the screen and can be shared with constituents and other interested parties. So with that, Kathy, that does cover my slide deck, the 18 slides, but at this point, if you want to have Q&A, I'm open to attempt to answer any questions from the group. And if you would like to proceed with your agenda for tonight, we can do that as well.
I think we'd like to have Q&A. Perhaps people could raise their hands on the raise hand feature, and we can call on you. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay,
then I'll start.
I see a question, Kathy, from Jane Wagner, Tech.
Go ahead, Jane.
Jane, I see you're still on mute, so.
Sorry. Thank you. I joined this call about 5 minutes late, and you probably discussed this. What's the source of zinc in runoff?
Zinc, a lot of that is, there's zinc, I believe, in tires. So tire wear as well as brakes, brake shoes and some of that mechanical parts of cars. And that's my understanding where the highest source of zinc is occurring.
I can answer that if you don't mind.
Yeah, please, Grace.
I actually asked a friend that is a material scientist, and she says to protect tires from degrading with UV light and ozone, they're about 1% zinc. So, all the tire crumbs that we got and they washed in the waterways, that's the source of the zinc. And the copper used to come from brake pads, but the EPA banned the use of copper in new brake pads, so that's why copper is decreasing.
A lot of great information there.
I'll ask a question. If you go back to the slide where you had the flow chart that showed how projects get selected and evaluated. Yeah, that was it. One forward.
Yeah, this one, yes.
What kind of criteria do they use? And
okay.
I just have lots of questions on this in terms of criteria, and are the projects distributed equally across the different watershed areas, that kind of thing, and so how are projects selected?
Yeah, I didn't want to do too deep of a dive into what we call our feasibility study guidelines, but there are 19 requirements in that feasibility study guidelines, and basically it is not a 30% design standard for projects. It is something less than that, but by addressing those 19 requirements, a project is eligible for the infrastructure program. There is a scoring process. I didn't walk through the flow diagram here, but we have a scoring committee, and we have specific scoring criteria that is weighted in different areas for project eligibility. Out of 110 points, a project could potentially score up to 50 in water quality. and I believe up to 25 in water supply, and then 10 and 15 for nature-based solution methods that are used, and community engagement and leverage funds. So, and community investment benefits. So there's a list of scoring criteria, which is just basically a grading scale for these multi-benefit projects, which would make them eligible for consideration to be programmed into these stormwater investment plans.
Yeah,
So, you know, each year there's a call for projects phase, which that will end this year on July 31st for year 5. And then from that collection of submitted projects, they will go to these steering committees, which will look over the projects, look at available revenue that's available, for programming into their stormwater investment plans. And then if they have projects that they want to be officially scored and validated by the scoring committee, they would send those projects to that committee, which will grade, if you will, the score on those projects, and then return those scores with their evaluation notes for consideration at the WASC. And then from the WASC, the Watershed Area Steering Committee, they will develop their stormwater investment plan and then forward that plan to what we call our Regional Oversight Committee. And that Regional Oversight Committee consists of 9 individuals with various expertise in stormwater, as well as the Flood Control District, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board is also a member to that committee as a non-voting member. And then from that step, that stormwater investment plan goes to our Board of Supervisors, and they typically approve that in the fall of each year, and then that will initiate a fund transfer agreement process with those applicants that are receiving funding. So on average, we have been sending out around 140 million on an annual basis to regional program applicants. And the vast majority of the funding needs to go to infrastructure. At least 85% of the revenue goes to infrastructure each year. 10% can go to our technical resources program, which funds our watershed coordinators, as well as project concepts that could be developed into infrastructure program applications. And then 5% of that regional program funds, that 50% bucket, can go into scientific studies that can help shape and inform projects that could help benefit the program with planning and monitoring and gauging the technical merit of projects.
I heard you say that maintenance was also funded.
Yes, and one thing like Prop O with I think the city of LA, it was a bond measure, and bond measures aren't eligible to fund O&M. And there's something about the use of bond funds towards O&M. But what made Safe Clean Water different is that it can fund the project's O&M for the lifetime of that project. And we want projects to be in the ground for a minimum of 30 years. And if that project is funded and built with Safe Clean Water dollars, it is eligible for that continued operation and maintenance. And just like anything, if you don't maintain your car, you don't change the oil, you don't change the tires, things are going to break on it. And much like these stormwater infrastructure projects, if you don't maintain them, they're not going to be effective. And that's one thing that Safe Clean Water is really doing things different by funding a project for its full lifetime. So that's a good point.
So what percentage goes to maintenance, or have you not got there yet?
So how the program is set up, nearly every dollar is going into construction and planning and design for projects. But starting out of the program, it is almost 100% in that design and construction phase. But I'm thinking by year 15, we're going to see roughly half of the revenue will be going towards new projects, and the other half of the revenue will be funding the operation and maintenance of those projects built over the first 15 years. And then, by 30 years, 3 decades out, it's probably going to be all O&M. Considering the cost escalation of inflation, I really see, more and more monies being programmed into operation and maintenance to keep these projects running smoothly.
So is there an overall objective in terms of the lifetime of this program? If you're going to be up to O&M at 100% in 30 years, are there overall water quality and water supply goals that you have?
So we don't have specific targets for those goals because financially we will be limited just by the revenue generated under the Safe Clean Water Tax. I know the regional board had a $20 billion investment that was needed to complete all the projects to, meet MS4 compliance, in the region. That's one number that I heard was 20 billion. The Safe Clean Water Program, collects $1 billion about every 3 years. So over 30 years, we'll collect about 10 billion. So if one study is saying there's a $20 billion investment in water quality compliance alone, Safe Clean Water could potentially fund, 10 billion of that. But when you take out O&M, there's not as much construction dollars available as the program matures. So, in 30 years, there will continue assessment of these projects, and if the need for more money is needed, potentially a new ballot measure could be reissued to increase that that special parcel tax of 2.5 cents potentially to something higher. But just so everyone knows, when Measure W was passed, that 2.5 cent special parcel tax is a forever tax. It's something that, unless it's repealed, it will be here forever, is my understanding.
No sunset.
No sunset.
Jan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, you put the, when I look at the portal where you talk about every project, you do it by households instead of by acre feet or gallons.
Yes.
And that's kind of confusing. How do you determine what a household, what does that mean when you translate it into measurement units for water?
Yeah, I would have to go back and see what that calculation is, but it's I think it's 4 households per acre foot. I think it's a multiple of 4, but it's some multiplier.
Okay.
A single family.
It's the same throughout the county. You don't use a different multiplier for different neighborhoods. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, that's what we have baked into that right now, and we do have what we're calling our metrics and monitoring study, and we are looking at establishing better metrics to more uniformly gauge benefits of projects. And we could talk about acre feet, and some people understand that volume. It's an acre of land 12 inches deep, and that's an acre foot of water. But if you say an acre foot of water is good for 2 single family homes, that's, if you, depending on your type of home, you may or may not have that perspective. So we are looking to, add consistency to, some of these metrics that, may be a little bit obscure to, certain groups. So we'll definitely look at that.
It would definitely be helpful to have both the acre feet and the households for both types of audiences. And my second question is, do you put the climatology of the different sites in there? Because I was looking at, where you say, I actually spent time with my calculator looking at 5 different projects around the county. And you would say, this is how much storage we have because you have a holding tank, and then you will do an infiltration well, and you have cubic feet per second that you can infiltrate. But it says that this is how many acre feet you can get at this site per year. And is that based on an average year, or is it the same number of storms? Because when you do the division, it seems like in some parts of the county, you're counting on 12 storms a year, and in other parts of the county, you're only counting on 8 storms a year.
Yeah, what I think what throws that calculation off is there is dry weather runoff that projects are collecting in those watersheds that aren't necessarily related to a rain event. So there's a mix of dry weather and wet weather projects. There is a set estimate. I think it's like 10 storms per year is estimated for wet weather projects and their capacities. But that multiplier won't be consistent from project to project, but it is a good read on your part to notice that difference. And some projects may get diversions from recycled water or something like that. So each project will be unique, and depending on is it all stormwater or dry weather runoff could be another factor that is changing that perceived calculation on rain events.
Jan,
But you're,
hands raised.
but you're counting on 10 storms per year on an average year?
Mm-hmm. 10 rain events.
10 rain events.
Jan,
Yes,
want to ask your
thank you.
question?
Sure. I've got two questions actually. But first, thank you, Kirk, for your being here and providing an overview of your program. I can remember when the league got out, I had just arrived in the state actually and participated in making sure that voters understood Measure W. So the first question is, you must feel that the year we've just had has put stormwater on everybody's map, and yet I doubt that this regional program is going to make much of a dent in our capacity to store and use stormwater. Would you comment on that?
Yes, the types of projects coming into the Safe Clean Water program are primarily MS4 projects, for compliance within the various MS4 permittees in the county. And those projects come in with a focus on water quality. But in order to be eligible for the Safe Clean Water program, they have to be multi-benefit. So I did show some infiltration galleries on projects, so they are storing, kind of that first flush. I kind of described what a first flush is. It's a very highly contaminated first runoff phase of a rain event. And that's what those projects are aiming to collect. And but the program has aspirations to do, potentially, enhance expansion of spreading grounds. And our spreading grounds are facilities that, divert water from our dams, or maybe raw imported water is diverted from some of the raw water lines coming in from Metropolitan. And, there is the potential to have expansion of our spreading ground basins. And those projects, maybe, on that 5 or 10 year horizon to come in and, be a stronger water supply type project. Right. But, the EWIMPs and WIMPs, that's the Enhanced Watershed Management Programs. Those are the water quality programs managed by the various groups in LA County. They have been required to have these plans for over a decade. And, they are, trying to comply with regulations in regards to the Clean Water Act. So their projects have been, in that planning phase and getting to that shovel ready phase. And that's what we have seen in that first wave of the 100 projects that have been approved for funding. They're primary water quality projects, but could we enhance a spillway or add capacity, at one of our dams or spreading grounds? We certainly could in the future. There may be other projects, that we may be able to acquire that could be more of a water supply element. But I will say, diverting to our sewer sheds, to our wastewater treatment plant systems, is a key and, dividend, as more and more projects continue to build, diversions to our sanitary sewers, it will help enhance or supplement our recycled water supply in that regard. So, it's a combination. Single purpose projects will always do things better. But the projects coming into the program, are required to be multi-benefit because the voters didn't want just a water supply project. They didn't want just a water quality project. They wanted to see, an enhancement in their neighborhoods. And, there's green streets, that adding greening elements, to some streets. And, that is, one element of, a voter's perspective that helped pass the measures that, to see more greening, in our urban environment through green streets, it is likely, we'll see more of those projects. And again, there's different opportunities within, certain watersheds, drainage areas. You typically want to, collect water at the closest point to the drainage, so you capture a lot of area upstream. And, a lot of those projects, have been in planning for quite a long time. And, those are the first projects we're seeing, and they're doing a lot of good. I mean, I just want to point to, 222,000 acres on these projects is being managed for water quality, and to make our waterways cleaner and safer. It helps the environment. It helps, I think, drive appreciation for where you live. So, it's, there will always be the media that will come in and say, where's all this water going? And, we have an amazing flood control system, that does a great job of protecting property. And that is one of the core focuses of the flood control district, is to ensure that, properties are safe in these floodplain areas. But, here in the 21st century, we need to do a little bit more with the water that does fall. And we need to make that safer and cleaner, store a little bit more in the ground, and improve the environment in neighborhoods where these projects are. And that's what we're seeing. And, it's, it's not the solution that media could portray, but you also have to look at, what are these projects doing for their intended purposes? And I will say, 101 projects, are planned to be built, and they are the right solution for that location. And, it's, it's a good feeling for me to be part of this. And, I do have 14 years of water resource management. I spoke with Kathy about, imported water supplies, from Owens Valley, the Colorado River, the State Water Project, the federal system. And, everything has a part. There's not one element of a portfolio that is the save-all, but Safe Clean Water is here to help protect our waterways, save more water, put a little bit more into the ground, divert water to our sewer systems, for recycled water augmentation, and enhance our community. So it's a multi-benefit program, and we shouldn't lose that perspective of, it wasn't just water resource people that voted for Measure W. It wasn't just water quality people that voted for Measure W. It was the public that voted for Measure W. And, what the public sees is, some of those projects that I highlighted, enhancements to where they walk, live, and play. So I think that's a thing to be proud of as, an interested stakeholder and a voter in the LA region. So that's my 2 cents, my soapbox on that, Jan.
Your soapbox, yeah, you really were going.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more that these watershed resources are quintessential to understanding who we are as locales.
Yes.
And to reacquire familiarity with them is just really valuable to spend one's career on. So
Yes.
kudos to you. That brings me to my second question. I would love to see 2 creeks in my area. I live in Claremont. 2 creeks shed components of their flood cement boxed structure and be reunited with their floodplains in areas where it would benefit neighborhoods. So has there been projects like that with Measure W? Are they off the table as being too simple-minded or too difficult or whatever? They certainly are multi-benefit.
Yes, so multi-benefit, there is a scoring criteria, and I didn't want to go into detail here, but it needs to have a water quality improvement. And, depending on, what that concept is, there's always potential. Your watershed coordinator in that area is day one. And Jan, if I could connect you with my watershed coordinator, at least to help identify concepts, because they have what's called strategic outreach and engagement plans. And, community engagement, if there's ideas out there about, potential thoughts and ideas for a particular location. It's hard for me to be all knowing. I'm from the Midwest, from Indiana. I moved out here in 2001. But those that live in these communities that know it very, very well, hearing from you is important. And our watershed coordinators, there's 12 of them. That is a first good point of contact to say, hey, this is where I live. This is something I see in my neighborhood. And then they can, I like to think of our watershed coordinators as people who connect ideas and thoughts to agencies, from the community, and then bring the Safe Clean Water program, to the community as well. So, it's that first connection is important. And I would, Kathy, if you can send me Jan's contact information, I'd be glad to connect a few folks there.
I will put it in the chat, Kathy, and thank you very much for the opportunity to follow up. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking at the chat and I see some more questions in there. Colleen Egan is asking, what are the qualifications of watershed coordinators?
Okay, there is a statement of qualifications. They don't need to have professional degrees. They don't need to be engineers. I would say their expertise is communication and creative thinking, collaboration. That there's no standout qualification, but in watershed management, experience, who has had involvement with understanding a watershed, what are elements, components of watershed management. Within the statement of qualifications, these watershed coordinators, provide proposals. And I could definitely point to that document to expand on, what those qualifications are. These watershed coordinators have basically 4-year contracts, and then there will be a new solicitation. I believe will be released either late this year or early next year to resolicit a new group of watershed coordinators. Existing watershed coordinators can apply for that. And if there's others that are interested in being a watershed coordinator, they could look at that application process and, potentially apply or, make a proposal to become a watershed coordinator. Some of the watershed coordinators are Council for Watershed Health. If you're familiar with Tree People, is another group that has watershed coordinators. Jan, I mentioned Day One is a group that provides community engagement through their organization, and those are the ones that we typically saw that came in. There's a gentleman, Rich Watson. He's a planner. People came in with a whole range of expertise. We had some engineering firms that came in and applied. But I think a big desire of the steering committees who select these watershed coordinators to be their coordinator was ones that would instill a lot of confidence that they're good communicators and, have experience engaging with the communities. And I think that was, one of the thoughts and ideas, from those committees that chose their coordinators. But again, would be happy to connect that RFSQ request for statement of qualifications document with the person that asked the question.
Okay, I've got another question here from Susan Longville. Are you aware of whether any neighboring counties in Southern California are considering a special parcel tax?
I will say yes. Culver City already has a stormwater tax within their city. The city of San Diego, I know they have a lot of drainage, a lot of storm drains that are reaching their useful life and are looking at developing their own stormwater measure. I've given a presentation to King County. I think it's in Seattle, Washington. There's a group up there that is looking to, potentially develop their own safe clean water program. I've spoken with professors from Australia, from the United Kingdom. They're really fascinated with what Safe Clean Water has done. And just to be honest, there's nothing that parallels Safe Clean Water. I mean, it is the gold standard. It is, global type policy that others will try to replicate. And, what the voters approved, there will always be some naysayers, that says, the program didn't do this or didn't do that. But it is leading the way and putting projects in the ground. If Measure W was passed, there wouldn't be 101 projects, going into construction, in this region. The stormwater programs, across the region were a fiscal orphan. When I say fiscal orphan, is that they had no money, they had no revenue outside of maybe some general fund that a city could scrape together, or like the city of LA did Measure or Prop O to get some revenue to build projects. But I mean, the key thing is Safe Clean Water looked at everything, had multiple attempts to get to the voters under different proposed packages. And Safe Clean Water Measure W was the one that met the criteria to advance, to the ballot in November of 2018. And by a good margin, 70% of the voters passed Measure W, which is, hopefully a reflection of an educated population that knows there's a great deal of benefit to managing our stormwater resources more efficiently and more wisely.
Does
Anything else?
else have a question?
And if there's no questions, Kathy, I'm happy to come back, at another meeting, provide an update, if you feel like there's time to pull someone like myself back in and relay some of the things happening within Safe Clean Water. But I would definitely want to follow back up with the group to see if there's, interest in knowing more about the program. We do have an e-blast that we send out fairly regularly. So Kathy, I'll send you the next one if you can forward that onto your group, and I can put a little message in there to subscribe. So you can kind of keep tabs on, what's happening with this multi-billion-dollar stormwater program.
Could I ask you another question?
Sure.
You had a map that showed the distribution of the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Could we go look at that again? I'm just, there it was.
This one, right?
So is that 101 spots, or
Yes.
that's 101 spots?
Well, there's actually more than, there's 101 infrastructure projects. If your screen isn't big, there's scientific studies, which are doing, some sort of technical research. There is a technical resources program which is developing project concepts, kind of much like Jan is asking for. If there's an idea for a project, and a potential opportunity within the Safe Clean Water program is the technical resources program to apply to that. And that's what the watershed coordinator can help, have a more formal discussion about, a project concept opportunity within the technical resources program. But if you see the water drop on those little pins, those are all the infrastructure projects that are receiving funding. And if you go to the portal, you can, zoom in, zoom out. You can get a better idea of the projects and where they're located along the various watersheds.
Yeah. So I can see there's a pretty good distribution throughout all of the watersheds. Is that part of the selection process?
Yes, there is.
Do they get,
I didn't break down these steering committees, but these steering committees, these watershed area steering committees have 17 members, that meet, 6, 7, 8 times a year. And there are 7 cities represented on that steering committee that make these recommendations. There are 5 agency seats, which are typically your water supplier, your sewer agency, your groundwater management entity, your parks and open space, and potentially a second water agency in those watershed agencies. And then there are community stakeholder seats, 5 community seats, which are environmental justice, environmental seat, as well as a business seat, and 2 at-large seats. So We don't expect these committees to be experts in everything, but, having a community voice, a community stakeholder say, you know what, we don't have a project in this area. I don't know anything about stormwater, but, is there potential to get a project in this area? And I think just, at a glance is, what a map can do. And if there's a project, developer, in that area that doesn't have a project yet, they can think about, a strategy for, potentially getting a new project in one of those areas. So again, I administrate the program, but, having a map, that showcases a gap, where, a city potentially doesn't have a project yet. I know it definitely gives a quick at a glance perspective on, what area could potentially see that next project. And, we'll be building projects for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And, the biggest projects I think are getting built now, but I think we'll have efficient, smaller scale projects, in the coming years, that will, help address some of those needs in the watershed, that have yet to see a project.
Could I also ask about do you have examples of what kind of technical studies are being done?
Yeah, we have some studies that are looking at bacteria. There's some studies looking at zinc, in the City of LA watershed area. There's a study that's being funded for microplastics, potentially looking at those. There's some technical studies looking at dry well technology where we're, putting water in, diverting that first flush into the ground. There's always, pre-treatment before you divert into the dry wells.
So they're looking at microplastics in stormwater runoff.
And there's some, we have one that's called gap analysis. Yeah, looking at, other opportunities within maybe that group's watershed area to see what opportunities may be present. So a lot of studies, fire effects studies. There's a study in along some of the burn areas that are looking at the effects of runoff from the burn areas. So a lot of this will help shape and inform, what is the priority, for that next project to potentially address. So, there's some discovery, period now that, those studies could have an influence on whether or not a project gets funded or not, to address some need that, could be under investigation. Good question, though.
Grace, your hand is up.
Yeah, I had another further question about, you talk about how safe, clean water is also about slowing down stormwater and cleaning it up. So that kind of it's all connected with flood control, right? Because when you slow it down, you help reduce the risk of floods. Could you get a colleague to come talk to us about flood control and all the different things that we're doing in this county?
Yes, yeah. The flood control system is a massive system, built, over many decades, and I can definitely, Grace, take that request back. And I'm probably not the point person for that that conversation, but I will follow up with you as a potential, presentation back to this group.
Yeah, because we really do need that, because these are, your two hands working together.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any questions that haven't been asked yet? Okay, then. Thank you so much, Kirk, for joining us. It's been really informative and very interesting. And I think many of us will be checking the website to look more in detail at the programs and the projects and all of that. And Grace and I will put together the list of email addresses and send that to you so that you can add us all to your distribution list. I'm hoping that's okay with everyone.
Okay, well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I'm happy to return, to relay more about safe clean water. And Grace, I will follow up with you regarding, a potential overview on the flood control district system. And yeah, thank you for the invite, and nice to meet you all virtually. And I'll stop sharing my screen now and give the controls back to Grace. So thank you so much.